Each water user is just one step along the water's journey throughout the catchment. And so we have to recognize the different role and connection each water user has to that system. So we define water stewardship as the use of water that is socially and culturally equitable, environmentally sustainable, and economically beneficial. Importantly, we believe this can only be achieved for a stakeholder inclusive process that includes both site and catchment based actions. So you can see that we're not just looking at the environmental condition of water or the social condition or even, the economic viability of that water resource, but we're trying to find a balance between all of these different factors. The word stewardship, I realize there's lots of different nationalities and, not everyone here is a native English speaker. And so I know that stewardship, it doesn't translate well into, especially like Spanish or Italian. I don't think there's an equivalent word. So the root stewardship, it means to take care of something that you do not own. Um, Unfortunately, when we translate this into different languages, it sometimes becomes sustainable management, but they are slightly, different things. Stewardship is just a recognition that the resources that we're relying on are shared with other water users, and so we have to address the challenges as part of a collective rather than as individual users and silos. But how is this different from what's already been done, especially at a farm level or within a factory or a different water using site? Well, management or good water management tends to focus within the boundaries of the site. It's focusing on consumption measures, efficiency measures, or pollution control, or maintaining legal compliance and being within permit requirements. Good water management, the best way to see it is, ensuring that the things that you can directly control are done in the most sustainable way possible or the most appropriate way possible. The things that we can control within our own boundaries. Stewardship then kind of builds on top of that by taking good water management, the good site level activities, and starts to connect it with the context of the catchment that it's existing or operating within. So it takes good water management. You need to have your house in order first before being able to engage effectively across the catchment. But you take this good on-site water management, you bring in the perspective of the catchment, the context that exists outside of your farm or facility, and start to bring in the perspectives of other water users, different stakeholders. Now, when we say to include or be stakeholder inclusive, it doesn't mean to be to hand over your management or your autonomy to these stakeholders, but it means to have dialogues with them and to consider their perspective on the challenges that you're facing. So, for example, it could be a community who may struggle to get adequate water at some points of the year. Maybe it's about just recognizing how your use of water might kind of coincide with their lack of water or vice versa. It's just about recognizing that the decisions you make at your site level have an impact outside of your boundaries and have an influence and impact on other water users. And vice versa, they will have an impact on you and how you use and manage water. So it's just recognizing that bidimensional relationship between water users within a catchment or subcatchment, within a certain area. So that's, I'd say, enough of the kind of the theory behind stewardship. Hopefully it's clear for everybody, but if not, we can answer questions at the end. So what is our role in all of this? The AWS, A4WS. Well, we were created with the vision of, similar to you, creating a water secure world that enables businesses, cultures, and people to prosper now and in the future. How we're doing this, or how do we, what's the strategy for achieving this? Well, we're igniting and nurturing global and local leadership, incredible water stewardship. So, you know, we have a defined approach and a defined product, which I'll get onto. But our primary purpose, and one of the reasons why I'm here and able to do a presentation like this, is in nurturing that local and global leadership. Nurturing companies and other water users to be leaders and pioneers or champions of water in their regions and also globally. But now the practical, what is it that we do to achieve this? Well, we're two things. We're a multi-stakeholder membership alliance, and we're an ISIL compliant standard system. So they're two mutually exclusive but also mutually supportive initiatives. The membership alliance is, you can be a member without using the standard system, and you can use the standard system without being a member. But our members contribute their experience and insights and their learnings into our system and help us grow and develop and improve what we offer. And then the users of the standard system really test our methodology and our understanding of water and water stewardship, and they both reinforce each other. But within these two broad categories, we do, three main activities. We convene different interest groups through stakeholder working groups or annual conferences, or having side meetings at events, or even just having ongoing meetings about topics. And the whole point is to help, build capacity and co-develop water stewardship. But then we also define what good water stewardship looks like through the certification process and championing users of our system. And then lastly, we recognize best practice and verify what people are doing and allow them to speak openly and transparently with a verified claim against it. Now, who are we working with? We have over 200 member organizations, and this has grown substantially since when we launched in 2016. But we're a multi-stakeholder alliance. So we're not just companies, we're not just charities. We have every kind of industry and every kind of organization within our membership, from civil society, public sector, to the massive users, industrial users, or some of the biggest companies on the planet. And having this diverse range of voices within our network allows us to kind of operate in a way that it's inclusive of all of these different dimensions that go into water. And all of our members kind of feed back into our system and allow us to kind of know that we're going in the right direction. But what is it that brought the companies to us in the first place? So we were established to create a repeatable approach for doing water stewardship. It became a bit of a buzzword. They wanted to create a system that everyone would agree to and implement and say, this is stewardship. If you're going to do it, you do this way. And the best way of doing that is creating a standard system with a certificate at the end for doing the assurance. So what is the AWS standard? It's a management framework. It's based on continual improvement. So there's no defined end goal with which the standard is aiming for. It provides a series of requirements, almost like a checklist of different things to look into to understand your local context and then to respond appropriately to your local challenges. So it does this by having 5 steps. Step 1 is gather and understand. As the name suggests, it's about gathering data on your water context. So where does the water come from? Where does the water go? Who else uses that water? And what are the challenges connected to it, and infrastructure, all of these different things, governance, etc. You build a picture of where you are, where the water's come from. You understand what it is that you're dealing with. In step 2, you commit and plan. So you develop a plan and a strategy to overcome those challenges or to contribute positively to overcoming those challenges. Your plan has to include SMART targets, so specific, measurable, time-bound targets. And you need to show how you're being inclusive of the stakeholder perspective with how you're using and managing the water. And then throughout the rest of the standard, you implement your plan, you gather evidence to show you're implementing your plan, you evaluate your performance to see how close you are to achieving your targets, and then you communicate and disclose your efforts with stakeholders. So it's not necessarily having a public disclosure, but it's about communicating your efforts with those that are, most connected to what you're doing. Hopefully you can see how, it's a methodology, it's a management framework rather than, if you've certified against AWS, it means you've achieved these things. It's much more about demonstrating you have a process in place for eventually getting to where you need to be. And then on the right, you can see the five intended outcomes. It's holistic in scope. It's looking at governance, about the availability of water, the quality of water, but also ecosystems and other important water-related areas. And then lastly, the social element, the access to safe water, sanitation, and hygiene. Now, once, so the standard is available for free online. Anyone can download it, use it, adapt it, apply it in their own system, use bits of it and all of this. The only way that you would be able to make a credible claim or to make a public claim about using our system is if you've gone through an audit. Now, we have a sister organization to us, which is the Water Stewardship Assurance Services, and they're the ones who are the sole audit provider for AWS. They're experts in water stewardship because they're not going out and auditing lots of different standards. They have really refined their skill set into being able to go to any catchment and start asking the right kind of questions to really understand that context and, is the company doing the most appropriate response to it or working adequately to achieve their targets? It's a very complex process, so having people who are specialized in it really helps, because this is something that, other certification schemes that are a bit more generalist or require their auditors to be more generalist may overlook some really nuanced and critical details that may turn a whole plan on its head, or that, could really show some red flags. If you don't know to ask the question, you may never come across it or realize it could be an issue. So having WSAS with us is really helping us understand what is required and what's actually achievable and doable in catchments across the world. Quickly on this, we've got, as of yesterday, 336, or Wednesday, 336 certified sites. Just some examples of these. Azura Group have 47 farms certified in Agadir, Dakhla, Morocco. Dole have 22 banana farms certified in Colombia and Ecuador. And then Nestle, they're using it within their direct operations, so they're the food and beverage division. But they're an important stakeholder and recognize the need for water stewardship, and they have 28 sites certified globally. So, we're sector agnostic, so to have Dole and Azura Group on board is great, alongside all of the other companies that we work with. And now I'll start talking about Spain. I realize slowly running out of time, so I'll not dwell too much. So in the south of Spain, well, let me go back a little bit. So as you've heard, like implementing AWS, it can be quite complex. Depending on where in the world that you're trying to implement it, the availability of catchment data might not be there. Similarly, the visibility of important stakeholders and other big water users may not be available. And so to be a single site or a single company in a location trying to gather that data or to engage with those stakeholders can be very resource intensive. So recognizing that there's an efficiency to be gained there by doing things collectively, we've developed the Collective Action Accelerator. We work with our members and other companies and stakeholders to identify shared priority locations. So, supply chain hubs or sourcing hubs where there's a high concentration of sites, manufacturing sites, farms, data centers, you name it. We have accelerators engaging all of these things. So we found shared locations of interest, and then we get together a critical mass of sites. These sites, come together for a shared process. And this shared process means that they all get the same data. They all receive the same training on water stewardship, and they're all involved in the same process of engaging with stakeholders and really starting to create a community of practice in that region. So the whole point is to maximize investment and make sure that, that catchment data, which is the same for everybody within that catchment, can be shared, and the cost of it can be shared across all of the recipients of the data. And similarly, if you're going to run a workshop to engage stakeholders, if you're going to do it for one company, it's going to cost the same as when you're going to do it for a group of companies. Obviously, catering goes into play, but it's a small cost compared to, one company doing it alone. So the whole, creating these little pockets of community of practice, we are igniting and kind of getting more water stewardship to happen and supporting implementation of AWS. So Spain, what are we doing in Spain? So Huelva province in Spain is the largest strawberry production region in the whole of Europe, if not globally. It's by far the highest concentration of strawberry farms. I think it's something like 80% of Europe's strawberries come from this very small region of Spain. With it being so far south, it also experiences high levels of water scarcity. It's also a mining hotspot, or historically a mining hotspot. So there's legacy contaminants in the water. That the story goes on. It's also the home to an internationally recognized and protected wetland, the Doñana National Park, which is an important migratory route for birds flying into and out of Africa as they migrate during the seasons. So the accelerator in Huelva was funded, at least in phase one, by Co-op Trading, Edeka, Kaufland, San Luca, Marks and Spencer's, and S Group SOC from Finland. They, in phase one, supported 19 berry producing sites to go through the program. As you can see, it's quite a geographic spread, so we covered a lot of the province. Now, phase one, as I've said before, is all about capacity building, training, gathering, doing step one of AWS, really building a picture of who's there, who's doing what are the challenges, what's needed. Phase one came up with 3 different outputs: training, catchment status report, which I'll start pulling out some bits from now. We also did a site level gap analysis of all of the producers to understand which certifications already had, what they're doing well, what needs to be improved. Just quickly on this, because I know certifications is interesting, and particularly Global Gap and Spring. What are we doing that's different from them? Well, 18 of the 19 sites had Global Gap already, and almost half of that, or more than half of that, had Spring as well. So the sites we've been working with were already very engaged in terms of certifications, agricultural certifications, and had already done everything within the kind of the usual approach to demonstrating good water management. So we really provide kind of a stepping stone. What comes next? How do you, once you've already got your house in order, you have your site level certifications done, what comes next? And that is where stewardship is a great stepping stone to building outwards and start, demonstrating you're part of a community as opposed to a single farmer. Now, there's a lot of information on this on the next few slides, so I'm not going to dwell on them, but it's just to show that we went into detail on all of the AWS outcomes, and this will be shared afterwards. I recommend I'm just kind of going through it, but the region faces significant challenges, not only about the availability of water, but from a governance point of view, from quality, the ecosystem conditions, and from a social point of view. And, we identify the challenges, and we've started identifying solutions for what can be done about it. So I'll skip through this, but you can see there's a massive amount of information on this. So AWS top, that's the Tinto Odiel Piedras basin. So it's one of the main basins in Huelva. The Doñana area is part of the Guadalquivir River Basin. So we're dealing with 2 catchment areas, so to speak, with different management systems. which also, from a governance point of view, played into some of the challenges because of the way the basins are managed. There's different perspectives on what is needed. One authority wants more infrastructure, and the other one wants to kind of reduce irrigation, reduce and start to kind of diversify the landscape and get more sites out of production. So two very different approaches. When we brought this up to the producers, they kind of sat somewhere in the middle saying, we can't have more irrigated land, but we also need our livelihoods. The perfect example of one person's solution is another person's challenge. So it's very interesting learning and going through all of this. Most water bodies are in poor condition, chemical habitats, lots of work to do. From a social point of view, I mean, the region has usually around 500,000 inhabitants every year for the strawberry campaign. 100,000. The area has a massive influx of migrant workers. There's very little information known about the conditions they're operating in, where they're coming from, where do they go afterwards. And whilst a lot of the farms we're working with had good, policies in place and activities in place to support their workers, it's just generally in the catchment, not enough information is known about this. So, something to work on, particularly as a group. Now, we ended phase one last September with a big workshop in Huelva. We had 65 attendees, truly multi-stakeholder, representing government, producers, supermarkets, you name it, they were there. And we just tried to use the day to kind of have open dialogue about the challenges, from a producer's point of view, as well as from the supermarkets, the government, and, really building that together. And then I'll just quickly go through phase two. So we've just started phase two earlier this year. 10 sites are carrying on, funded by these companies. And then phase two is all about taking the data of phase one and really turning it into action through water stewardship plans, further workshops of stakeholders, and, going from now we know what the challenges are, here's what we're doing about it. So we've just started this. We have some ideas about what's needed, but really this will develop over the next few months as we work closely with the sites to see what they're already doing, what are their priorities, and what needs to be improved. But since we're speaking about irrigation today, I thought maybe I'd pick out one of them very quickly. So as you've seen, many of the sites we're working with have Global Gap Spring. From an irrigation point of view, I asked our consultants that we're working with, and they said many of them have already achieved significant successes with their irrigation, whether it's optimizing it or going for hydroponics and reusing the water for they're being very efficient with the resource. So for the sites that we're working with, at least the next step would be to start branching out and looking at other farmers and supporting them to adopt better practices, or to better communicate about what they're doing, what they're using, and why they should be considered best practice, rather than needing to continually improve the irrigation. Now it's much more about demonstrating why they're using it, why it makes sense for the supermarkets to trust their technologies, and how to communicate that further with customers so they can feel assured that those strawberries they're purchasing haven't been grown in a negligent way. And then here's the rough timeline. Started very beginning of March. It's very fresh. But by the end of this year, we'll have the first plans formed and started to implement, and we'll be having a series of workshops throughout the year. So if there's anyone on the call that would like to participate in any of these in-person workshops, feel free to reach out, and I'd be glad to include you on the invite list. And with that, I will finish there. I realize I almost filled up the whole time. So thank you, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ben. That was very interesting. Let's open the session for questions, comments. I'm going to hold myself because I've got a few, but I'll let everyone go first.
There's a lot of information there. Bruno.
That was a lot of information, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello,
Okay, go Ben.
everybody. Thank you, Ben, for this very insightful presentation. Quite tough, so maybe it's quite easy, or some of us will have to go back on it further and probably came out with other questions. One practical question. Did you, from the investigation of the different data that you have collected from the 19 sites you were speaking about, do you have an idea of the level of efficiency that we could induce from the different data, or is it something that is maybe too detailed for your approach?
Yeah, so we haven't received the, just for confidentiality reasons, we never received the site level data. So we know how well the group have done or the things that the group are implementing, but we don't know it down to a site level or based on any reference year. It's more of a snapshot of where they were last year. The reason why we didn't collect the site level data, it was just down to trust. Like the site's not either trusting us enough to guarantee we weren't going to give bad information to the supermarkets or to some other stakeholders. So really, it came down to, making sure they were comfortable, even to share some of the information with us. We kept it behind, we were never going to get the actual individual site info.
Okay, so you mean you don't even have the general overview that what of the level of efficiency, because if you want to progress, if you want to increase or to improve the stewardship of the resource, you need to you need to have a current situation
Yeah,
to try to
absolutely.
improve it.
Yeah, so as part of like implementing AWS, they need to demonstrate their water balance and how they're not being against it. From a site level, they will have this information. But so we're working with a consultant, Techno Value Sir. They're the ones that hold the relationship with the sites and will have that efficiency data.
Mhm.
And they're experts in water stewardship. So from the AWS point of view, just so that we could maintain like that trust and relationship with the producers, we kind of say, look, the consultants will maintain that and we'll kind of oversee it as a group rather than individual sites.
Okay, that's a little bit frustrating.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, I would love to know exactly what the sites are doing and all of this, but there's a lot of distrust amongst the other producers. So
Of course.
we were hoping to get like the best practice examples to share what they're doing at a workshop. Almost unanimously, they all said, no, we don't want our competitors to get an advantage by learning from what we're doing. So even there, like getting the producers to share details on how they're irrigating or the efficiencies they're gaining, they don't want to share that with their competitors. So there's a lot of different things that we need to kind of be sensitive about, whether that's, them thinking we're going to give negative data to supermarkets to ruin their contracts or to pass it along to their competitors. Um, but yeah, we weren't expecting it. We were expecting people to be a bit more tolerant and inclusive, but actually, we found that even those that are great examples of companies and who should be, exemplified and put out there and celebrated, they don't want the press, they don't want the attention, either to benefit their competitors or to be like have any kind of attention drawn to them. So it's very challenging.
Okay, thank you.
Other question to anybody? From anybody?
I have something around this. I'll try to be precise on this one. First of all, thank you very much, Ben. I think that I've learned personally a lot. I wasn't aware of your activity on this one. And I wonder what's in it for the irrigation sector. If I'm looking on the forum here and what we're trying to promote, because the irrigation sector, we're trying to promote what we call sustainable irrigation. Right? Sustainable irrigation, that's a very tricky one because we need the terminology here doesn't exist. So we really need to build everything from scratch to start saying, okay, what is it? It's not only about saving water. It's not only about one technology of precision or the other. There are many factors here, and we've published this position paper a year and a half ago on what does it mean to set the stage. And I'm trying to match these things together with what we're saying. For example, you mentioned this WSAS, I think that was the name of the certification, and the third party that is joining, that is objectively checking. Is there any opportunity here for collaboration in terms of creating, working together on this question for the alliance? What does it mean, good irrigation? We know how to define we don't have the thresholds, but we know how to define good irrigation is about less resources like energy and water and fertilizers and so on. And then we go to data informed decision making processes and all the tools that, I don't know, Thomas today show us some of it. Have many companies are doing things in ecological way. Like there are many factors. Do you think that there is a place for collaboration, for having this discussion between the sector of the irrigation and your
Definitely.
organization?
Yeah, definitely. Just bringing Spain as the example, Spain has particularly in Huelva, there's a legality issue, just demonstrating that the farms have a permit to operate, either a water permit or a permit for using the land. For an auditor, it's a very complex thing to kind of figure out, going through all the permits, checking maps, realizing what's what. Recognizing that we worked with WWF Spain to develop training on that legality issue, so our auditors can go to a region and know what to look for in terms of permits and legal compliance from that farm perspective. So there is scope for like developing similar guidance or sharing that insight into how to spot whether a farm is using sustainable irrigation or irrigating sustainably. I think this question of what's the value proposition for the irrigation community or for technology and solution providers, and I think a lot of it comes really back down to narrative. And as you said, like defining what good irrigation looks like. And, the AWS standard is sector agnostic. It's been designed to be used by any water user anywhere. And it has within it certain parameters that would define whether the source of water is at least sustainable or you're using an adequate amount or not using too much. So I think even just trying to working with irrigation communities to use the AWS standard to guarantee that the water they're using or the system that they've created for their irrigation community is, doing it in the best way or doing it in a way that's, verified in some way. It's complex though, because I mean, it's not exactly an indirect footprint, the users of the irrigation or the crops that are being purchased, but it's almost like downstream of your impacts, rather than kind of, a farmer would, uses the irrigation water, uses the technology, but they didn't design the technology, they didn't design where the water's coming from, they're just the end user of this chain. And for those that come before it, whilst the impact is done by the farmer, it's more about recognizing there's some shared responsibility. There's, maybe it's providing better communication material about the technology that's being used, or showing how, in these situations it's being used in the right way. So maybe it's a bit more about helping form that narrative and explain the benefits and the outcomes that are being aimed for, rather than it being like a tangible thing for all the irrigation sector to really implement directly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, in a way, I understand, but I think it's about the definition. There is a lot of work to do around this very delicate definition on how you use water in a sustainable way, in a equitable way, responsible way. So this is something that we're really trying to look for partnerships here on this. So I think that this certification can be. We're going to explore this a little bit more, but I think it might be interesting to have at least this dialogue and to
Yeah.
develop the concept. Thank you for your
Yeah,
answer.
I mean, are you connected with RAP or CFAV? Any of the like, I mean, they're mostly supermarket-led initiatives, but they are within like the fruit and vegetable supply chains, especially. They're really pushing for water stewardship, but also trying to create collective actions and really lift the supply of fruit and vegetables towards sustainable water.
Yeah.
And I know that they've got interest in trying to define what sustainable irrigation looks like as well. So there's other partners that we work with that may also be very relevant for this.
Yeah, I think there are many initiatives on a private company sector, like a level between some of the off-takers and some of the companies that are involved in the food sector mainly. But I'm not aware of anything which is structured like as a sector, as a more of a holistic approach. I think that many companies they share the mutual engagement, trying to use water in an efficient way, but it's practically it's very local in many ways.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
these partnerships. Yeah. Thank you.
I think
Yeah.
Bruno had a question.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
a comment. We had some discussion with Carrefour, which is defining quality chain. Something about quality chain, and they wanted to integrate the water. They were beginning with the pesticides and fertilizers, and they wanted to add water, but it seems that they didn't follow up from the very beginning. So we would be very interesting to discuss a part, of course, of the way we could support such part of the stewardship.
Yeah, absolutely. We also host similar events such as this. So we have working groups, and we have one that's specific to agricultural value chains. So it's not just farming, but it's looking at like the food and beverage that comes from that. But a lot of the focus is on agriculture, the actual production of crops. So maybe there's an opportunity for you to present there and connect with our members and our stakeholders kind of directly at one of these meetings, but also maybe on an ongoing basis as well.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, keep us informed, and
Yeah, absolutely.
We should be volunteer to participate.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ben. If no other questions, then no. I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
you for the opportunity. I'll be here till the end if there's any further questions that come up. But yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Okay, so I think it's time to move to the latest part of the forum with the innovation and technology session, during which our members have the opportunity to introduce a new technology. And this time it's Aymerci Molin from Elicit. He will do a presentation about phytosterols to enhance plant resistance to drought. So Aymerci, you can share your presentation.
Yeah. Do you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
you. I'm back. So I will present a little bit more who I am and why this story has started. Because where I live, in the west part of France, we have a very hard condition to produce cereals, even if we think there is a lot of rain, but because our soil is not good at all, and we have a strong issue with water reserve in the soil. And that's the reason why the yield of farms here are moving a lot. So this issue that we have on my farm, during my studies, I've seen that that's a major problem issue for all the farmers in the world, and not especially where in the farm of my parents. And that's the reason why I always work on this issue, and especially I've worked for the Ministry of Agriculture in Australia, and I've worked in a farm in North Dakota too, in order to understand better how some other countries manage the water efficiency in the world. So that's the origin, one of the part of the origin of the company. And thanks to my two partners, so as I mentioned, Jean-François and Olivier, we have they have brought to me a technology of phytosterol in order to see if we can do something about water resilience and to increase the resistance or increase the yield, even if we have more and more water stress. That's the origin of the company. So just to mention what we think about the agriculture and the evolution, that we have more and more climate hazards, and the impact of these hazards are very important on the yield, as I mentioned on my own experience as a farmer. But it's not only me, as I said before, it's everywhere in the world we have not a stable yield, and because of the difficulties of profitability of the farm, it's a huge issue to the future of farming, and we have seen that about 50%, half of the agriculture is under this pressure about the water availability, and it create a huge risk for all of the humanity and famine risk, obviously. So, and because that's the third part of this slide, because the income of the farmer is not sure, and we have to find some insurance for them. So there is many things, especially irrigation, is that the main solution that the humanity has found many years ago, many thousand years ago, but we have to find some other innovation in order to make a world more sure for farmer and to continue to produce. So in this map, we can see everywhere where the farming has a lot of drought, and the different of severity of the drought, and so we can see that everywhere where we produce crops, we have this risk of water stress, and especially for maize and wheat, that are very important for the energy for animals and also for human, because most of the energy is coming from these two crops. Oops. And the origin of the changement is coming from the evolution of the temperature, because more high is the temperature, more water we need in order to reduce the temperature of the leaves of the plant, and so more water we are going to consume, the plant is going to consume for its temperature, and not to create biomass. So because of this evolution of the temperature, we have a risk of reducing the water efficiency that the plant has, because most of the temperature could be used in order to reduce the temperature, especially for corn when we have temperature over 32 degrees, and the heat stress is very important over 32 degrees for the plant. So our target is to manage this risk, and in order to have a better water efficiency, and to face off this unpredictable environmental condition. And the technology that we have thought with my two partners at the beginning was to use phytosterol. In fact, phytosterol is a molecule, plant molecule, that is a part of the membrane of the cells and of the cells. And this phytosterol that's a sterol. So I think everybody knows cholesterol. That's a sterol for animals. but in the plant, that's phytosterol, and this molecule is a signal molecule that create a signal in the plant in order to adapt the physiology of the plant to a stress. And different stress are targeted by phytosterol, but we have concentrate our work in a water stress because it was my huge issue on my farm that you can see in this slide. So we have understood that this signal could be very interesting if we use it before the water stress, because when the plant is going to manage its physiology is when there is a signal that arrives in the normal condition. It's arrived when there isn't enough water in the soil, so it creates this signal. But it's very hard to reduce the water consumption when there isn't any water in the soil. So thanks to our understanding about the effect of phytosterol, we can use this natural effect before there isn't any water in the soil and before the water stress. Thanks to this preventive effect, we are going to change the physiology of the plant before the water stress, before the drought, and thanks to that, we will have a better yield. And in fact, only one application creates this effect. So when we had this idea, between an idea and a product that we can use in a farm, we have to have a very smart process in order to have a real product. And it was the idea of the company. It was to have in the same place that you can see, so on my farm, all of the tools in order to evaluate the performance of the product in the field, in the real condition of a farmer, and at the same time have here is the chemistry lab where we make the formulation of the product. And also at the end of the farm, there is a biology lab where we understand the mode of action of phytosterol, which genes are expressed, and we can select the best product in order to target crops, because all of the phytosterol that we use on species are not the best one for another one, so we have to adapt the phytosterol to each species. And the idea was to formulate a product for farmers to use exactly the science from phytosterol for each species, and to have the capacity to evaluate the reality of the effect in a real condition. So what the phytosterol is going to have when the signal arrives, it's going to increase the size of the roots. So that's an effect that is going to be permanent, obviously. But the other one is to reduce the open of stomata in order to reduce the evapotranspiration. So obviously we are going to increase the temperature of the leaves at the same moment. So we ask the plant in order to reduce the water consumption and accept to have a higher temperature. And thanks to this effect, we are going to maintain more water in the soil during a longer time, and we are going to resist to water stress when it will arrive. And so that's the reason why we say we increase the water efficiency, because we are going to produce more biomass with less water. And it's interesting if you have not the capacity to irrigate, but also it's very interesting if you irrigate, because we as on my farm, 100% of the corn is irrigated, but of all of my equipment has the capacity to put between 4 and 6 millimeters per day, and because it's an equipment that we have built in the 90s and 80s and 90s, and now we have to put more water to have the same yield because of the temperature, as I mentioned before. And but when we use such a product, we are going to reduce what the plant needs to its growth, and that's the reason why it's very interesting to use this technology in a irrigated condition or non-irrigated condition. So the phytosterol That's a technology very well known by the science since 40 or 50 years ago. So since 40 or 50 years, the scientists are working on phytosterol and the role in the plant. But what it was very hard for them to develop it was to understand exactly which phytosterol are very important for which stress and which species, because it was very hard to introduce phytosterol in a plant before the technologies that we have developed. And thanks to that, now we have a thesis in the CNRS of Strasbourg, the specialist of phytosterol, in order to understand very well which phytosterol for which plant for which stress, because that's not exactly the same as I mentioned before. So that's not the same product that you could develop for cereals, for corn, for soybean. For each species, you have to identify exactly the phytosterol you need, because in the world there is more than 250 phytosterol. And phytosterol, so it's extracts from plants, so that's a natural extract. And we know, thanks to the work we do with with the CNRS and also in IIA, we know that the phytosterol that we put in the plant is going to be metabolisé, so destroyed in the plant very quickly. That's only the signal who is going to maintain the plant during all of the life of the plant when we speak about an annual plant. When that's a permanent plant, you have to spray each year, but only one time in the year when we work on an annual plant as a corn or wheat. So, oops. Just a few minutes about the story of the company. So we started in 2017. We obtained the first market authorization in 2021, and in France, and also we launched the sales in 2022 in France. Just after that, we developed the market in Ukraine. Maybe not at the best moment in the story of Ukraine, just at the beginning of the war over there. Sorry for them. I don't know there is a link. I'm not sure there is a link between our launch in Ukraine and the war, but it was at the same time. And also we have developed the market in Brazil, thanks to opportunity found by Jean-François and Olivier. And so in 2023, we developed the first sales in Brazil. As you know, that's a very huge market for corn and soybean, and especially for corn, there is a huge risk of water stress during the safrinha season, the second season in this country. And we developed in 2024. We have developed a European market in different countries, and now we are in 14 countries in Europe. And just to mention, we have a success with the second fundraising with Carbine, a German company, because it was the biggest fundraising in 2024 in the world in the AgTech. So it's 45 million euro. And now in 2025, we have started the distribution in North America. So we are present in Europe, in South America, and North America. So I have explained the science. I have explained the pain that we had at the beginning of the company, and so maybe I have to explain to you the performance of the product, what we can expect with such a product. So what I present is the average of the gain that we have. So in this, the water efficiency is between 10 and 20%. Why I say that? Because it depends of the condition, of the natural condition. If I am in a lab, the best performance I can have is between 40 and 50% of water use efficiency. But we don't want to communicate about the best performance in the lab. It doesn't mean anything for me. That's the performance in the field. And the performance in the field is linked with the climate condition of the year. And so if the year is pretty cold and rainy, we have less gain. And if the year is pretty dry, we are going to have a better gain. So it depends obviously of the year. That's the reason why we speak about a range between 10 and 20%. That's the reality you can find in the field. So it means that to produce 1 kilograms of corn, usually you need 450 liters. And thanks to this technology, the average is 360 liters per kilogram of corn. And you can see some pictures about the spikes, and you see there is a less stress at the end of the spike. If you know how to produce corn, you can see the difference, because that it means that there is a water stress when you have something like that at the end, at the top of the spike. And so the gain of yield is more than 500 kilograms per hectare in average, of more than 300 trials that we did in all of the world. So North America, South America, and Europe. And we have put all of the trials. The win rate is 90%, so you have 90% of chance to have to win, but and the average of yield of gain is 500, more than 500. Sometimes we could have some very huge performance, but we only speak about average. We prefer to be to be cautious about performance, because sometimes we see some amazing performance, and I explain really what is our strategy of communication. So just to mention a trial that we did in order to understand better what you can see in a real condition. So it's a trial on my farm. Where we know that the water resource is not very huge, especially in the river, and so we have limited irrigation every year. And in this condition, so very limited irrigation, we have two modalities in the same field, in the same condition. So we have decided to have a very limited irrigation, only one irrigation. In this condition, the control has 9 tons per hectare, and thanks to the technology, the production was 9.8 tons per hectare. So very interesting gain for a farmer. And in another condition with 4 irrigation, 4 moment, at the best moment around the flowering period and before the abortion. So at this moment, the gain was less important, but also there was still a gain. So in this condition of limited irrigation, there is in our experience, that's the best condition to have performance with the technology. Where that's not a huge drought, because when there is a huge drought, our technology is not a miracle. You are not to have a rain, but that's in this condition of water stress that is not all of the year, but at some period in the year. That's the condition to have the best performance. That's the reason why we say we are not we propose something that is complementary with it's a complement to the insurance, that usually the insurance is when there is a huge drought, and not this short period of water stress. So now for this season, we think we are going to have more than 250,000 hectares treated on corn, cereals, sunflower, and soybean. Since the beginning of the company, it should be about 1 million hectares treated by this technology. So we work especially in Ukraine in a FASEP program in order to help them, especially in the south of the country, where it's harder and harder to irrigate because of the destruction of the dam of Kharkovka, as you have seen maybe on the Dnieper River. And that there was an impact, a huge impact of the farmer in the south of the country. As you know, we are here thanks to this collaboration with Austria Universität of Boden Kund. That's the origin of the collaboration with EIA. So we start to understand better how to have a scientific measurement of the water benefit and to use the best technologies that we can find in this university. So we work also for some other country in Romania, but we have a strong strategy in Ogallala Aquifer, so in the US, between Kansas and Nebraska. A large part of corn is irrigated in this area, and as you know, maybe the resource of water in this aquifer is less and less important, and there is a huge risk of reduction of water availability for irrigation in this part of the world, and we target to work with them in order to find a solution for farmer in this states. I just finished by something that Steve Jobs have mentioned about the innovation. And if you have some question, it's a pleasure to answer.
Thank you, Aymerci. This is very encouraging. I think that we're gonna have this triangle today of all the altogether irrigation and that Ben's presentation yourself. We can combine everything together. Some questions from the audience. Is there any? Please don't be shy and raise your hand. While I will ask Aymerci just to repeat the last slide that you showed, something interesting. This EU-funded program in Romania, for example, that you just mentioned, right? So is it about the I guess it's kind of a Horizon or Life or something, this type of projects, but is it around, is it something that you are, you provide, you try to verify quantify the connection between phytosterol and irrigation? That's the idea there, just to find the mutual connection between the two? Just to understand, again, what is the relationship between irrigation and this technology of phytosterol?
Yes. So as I mentioned, irrigation is you put water in a field, but you are pretty sure to have in most of the conditions of irrigation, you are pretty sure to have not enough water for the plant, even if you irrigate. And that the condition that I know in many parts of the world, and so that's how to manage the water that we have with the equipment that we have in order to optimize the irrigation. Because there is a huge progress in irrigation thanks to the technology in order to manage the water, the equipment of irrigation, and the props in order to pilot the irrigation. But also, if we introduce a technology as phytosterol in order to reduce the water needs by the plant, it's something we have to integrate between the props that's going to pilot something with a knowledge that is coming from the past, obviously, because the props is the AI is thinking about the past and not the future. And so we have to, and we work with some companies, French companies, as WINAT, some other one, in order to introduce this technology to know that now if we have 30 degrees, the water needs per day could be reduced thanks to this technology of phytosterol. So we have maybe to change a little bit the model in order to introduce this technology but before to say exactly what we can do, we have to develop the program with university in order to be sure about what is the impact in different conditions of reduction of irrigation.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Michael?
Yeah, thanks a lot. What about any try in urban landscape? Is there any kind of use on the sports field, or I think about grass on sports field specifically. Is there any try about it?
So we started by the biggest market. We are a small company, and also we have to create value. And so we have started by the biggest market, that is corn and soybean. But also thanks to the value that we have created on these crops, we have some big company who ask us in order to work on turf, and especially for golf course. And for the US market. But if we find a solution, and we know that maybe the solution that we have for cereals could be very interesting for grass or turf. And but the problem is in our technology, we have to be very precise about the dose that we use. And it's not so obvious in turf to be sure of the dose that professionals are going to spray, because the machinery, the equipment that they have in order to spray products in grass in urban cities are not as precise as what is used for farming. And that's the reason why we have started by crops and broadacre crop, because we spray like that when we spray a foliar product. And we have just developed the technology in order to spray on grapes, because we spray like that. And we are not sure about how to address the trees, because you spray from the bottom to the top, and the dose is less sure when you work like that. So it's a new challenge for us to work on golf course and grass for urban cities, because we are not sure about the dose. If you put not exactly the dose, you put less, you won't have the performance, because the risk is to have not the exact dose to have the signal. And if you put more, for example, in corn, 3 times more the normal dose, you could have a bad effect on the corn, the phytotoxicity. So you have to be sure of the dose that you use with this technology.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Bruno, you have a question?
Yeah. Yeah, but you just have partially answered the question. I was just wondering about the way this kind of product is applied in terms of what is the time lap that you have, and technically, do you think it is possible? So I understood that it is a product that is absorbed by the leaves, and so. Did you try, or do you anticipate to try the use of irrigation system to apply these products on the leaves? And what happens with the roots?
Yeah. So that's a very important question for the development of our company. So for the moment, the products that we sell is the absorption in the plant is coming from the leaves. And with the irrigation, if we spray by irrigation, the risk is to haven't enough product on the leaf, because most of the water is coming to the soil, because that's the target of the irrigation. So we have to be sure that we can introduce this the product by the roots, and that's a challenge for us to be sure of that. We have developed with Dosatron. I don't know if you know this company, this French company, Dosatron, that is in Bordeaux. We have developed a prototype in order to introduce this product by irrigation equipment pivot or sprayer. So we have the prototype. We have developed the prototype. We are sure of the dose that we put, but for the moment, we don't see the same performance than a foliar application. That's the reason why it's research, R&D, and not a sell product by this way. So we work on it. I think it will be a pretty long way because that's not so easy to be sure of the dose that we will have in the soil. And we are very sensitive of the dose that we put in the plant. That's the reason why when we spray, we have a very strict condition of spraying as a foliar herbicide or foliar fungicide. And that's the same kind of application than that. So it's not so easy to see the end of the way in order to have this absorption by the roots, and also a solution directly by irrigation.
So maybe we could discuss it apart, but I would suggest you to have a look to what is used for some of the worms that are present in corn, with the possibility to treat them and to position the water at the cornet. I don't remember how to say it of the corn. And from an experiment that I was conducting in my former life, we could manage to decrease to less than 3 millimeters per hour, or 3 millimeters, the quantity of irrigation that we could apply. And in this case, as in corn, for example, you may store about 3 millimeters in the canopy. That could make maybe we could make it, but we could discuss it apart.
Yeah, with pleasure.
No more questions?
No, I think
maybe one question which is more a perspective, and that was mentioning in my comments, Aymerci. If those phytosterols are managing the way the water stress is operating, is there any other sterols, because there are others that are managing every type of stress, that are developed for other stress? It's more a cultural question than targeted.
Yes, that there is a gap between what we sell and the commercial way and what we research on. And so we have a R&D program on some other topics there is commercial, there is regulatory, and there is R&D way. So there is different things. So we have some effect that we know very well, some other stress, especially on biotic stress. But for the moment, we are not allowed to mention it on our label because it's not we are not registered in Europe as a biocontrol product, but as a biostimulant product. So it's not possible for us to claim the effect on biotic stress, but obviously we have worked on and we have patent on that, and we have proved the efficacy on that. We have a thesis with INRAE in Dijon on that. So we are pretty strong, but that's the opportunity of put this claim on a label that is not ready. So also we know there is another stress very linked with the water stress, that's the heat stress, and we work on it because we have already seen some very interesting effect on heat stress, especially in south of US, where we have a very interesting effect on that, on corn. And I expect to find this same of effect on wheat because it's a huge issue on production of wheat in Europe, and especially in Mediterranean basin, when we have a very high temperature at the end of the cycle of the wheat.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good. Any more questions? Aymerci? or someone remembered to ask Ben something that he forgot previously. If not, I think that we're getting to the end of today's forum. This is the session where we can open the microphones if you would like to add anything, a general way on the association, the market, the irrigation. Please go ahead and comment.
My comment or my claim is please help me to find a new subject for the forum because well, we have to find a subject that will interest everyone and then find speakers, which is not so easy. And thank you, Ben and Aymerci, for
Thank you.
supporting us.
So as a concluding remark on this one, first of all, Bruno, thank you very much for picking up these two topics. I think that while I don't know if it was planned this way, but we're always seeking for this sustainable labeling and irrigation, and I think that we can think of a very good combination of what happened today here in this forum, because we have the phytosterol crop value together with the efficient irrigation, going together to the under the roof of the certification of the Alliance for Water Stewardship. I think all together can contribute to each other. I think that it is complementary technologies and platforms that can work together, and maybe one day we're going to get there. So thank you, Bruno, for choosing these topics. I think this was very interesting and different, as Ben mentioned previously before, so not as expected. Thank you very much, Aymerci, and thank you very much, Ben, for your very interesting presentations. A big thank you, as always, to Fleur for preparing this event, and also to you, Jean-Maurice. You're always there supporting us from the background on the ongoing. Okay. And if no other questions or comments, I think more than just wishing you all a very lively, springly, nice weekend. I hope to see you soon next time. Thank you,
I just
everyone.
wanted to add something.
Yes,
you will receive minutes of the forum and the presentation. It will be also available on our website, and recording of the event will be available on our YouTube channel, probably next week. Or
Thank you, Fleur. Have a beautiful weekend, everyone. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Have a nice weekend.
Bye-bye.